Hello and welcome. My name is Larry Bodine, and I'm the president of Democrats of Greater Tucson. And I welcome you to our third broadcast. DGT, as you might know, is Arizona's only weekly forum for Democrats, and we've been bringing you Democratic candidates for 40 years. And today I want to welcome our presenter, Dustin Walters. How are you doing, Dustin?
I'm doing fine, Mr. Bodine. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. We're looking forward to hearing from you. Interesting story about Dustin. When the incumbent assessor, Bill Staples, announced that he was going to retire, Dustin's coworkers rallied around him and persuaded him to run for the position. And understanding that the assessor has four key roles, which are namely an administrator who establishes and executes policy, budget management, employee relations, and community outreach, his coworkers successfully convinced Dustin that he has the leadership skills to ensure that all property owners get a fair and equitable valuation. And of course, I want to let you know that we, Democrats of Greater Tucson, does need your support. And if you haven't paid your 2020 dues yet, we highly encourage you to. You can just go to the DGT website, and the web address is right there, and you'll see a blue box that says pay dues. And we are far and away the best bargain in Democratic politics around town. It's only $20 for an entire year. So here's Dustin. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He is currently the senior property appraiser in the assessor's office. He's lived in Tucson for 7 years. He's married to Jenny, who is a clinical pharmacist. And he's the dad of Parker Jack, who is age 11 months. So that's got to be a lot of excitement at home. He's had a successful management career in sales, operations, and customer service. And he's been active in the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona, the Boys and Girls Club, the Salvation Army, and the United Way. And with that, Dustin, take it away.
Well, Mr. Bodine, first of all, I would like to thank you for helping me put this together, communicating with me back and forth. Also, Miss Sandy as well. She was the first one that I met with, and the communication I've had with her has obviously set this webinar up, along with your help. So, great appreciation for the entire organization of DGT. 40 years is absolutely spectacular. I'm honored and consider it a privilege to be able to sit here today and explain to everyone in attendance my views, my feelings, and exactly why the Pima County Assessor's position is extremely important to every single citizen of Pima County, and why I, at the end of the day, is the best candidate for the office going forward. Before I go further, if you don't mind, Mr. Bodine, I'd like to take just a moment of silence just to show our appreciation for all the essential workers here in Pima County. Those on the front line, first responders, healthcare workers, as well as food servers, grocery store employees, everyone that does not have the benefits of being quarantined in their home to help eradicate this pandemic. So if you don't mind, let's just take 10, 15 seconds. All right, thank you for that. It was, important for me to be able to express my appreciation for those folks. This community, at the end of the day, is, in my eyes, built off of those type of people. The people that have the grit, the people that wake up every day to do whatever they can to help their neighbor. And to be honest with you, that's kind of why I'm here right now. Not being from here, being from the Charleston, South Carolina, the Southeast, where the whole world knows that region of the country as, Southern hospitality, so on and so forth. My wife and I moved out here about 17 years ago, 2013, for her to follow a position within the VA system. And so her and I packed up, decided to move west, did not know what we were getting into. We're very unfamiliar with the area, but we said, let's do it. And when we came out here, I was blown away at the hospitality in which people showed us. It was absolutely amazing. We had many conversations within the first month on various scenarios of us being out in public, people holding doors for us. If I was wearing a shirt that said South Carolina, somebody would instigate a conversation based off of that, and it was amazing. So it didn't take long for us to realize that, hey, you know what, we can make it here. These are our kind of people. We get along with them, and let's do what we can do to make sure we're successful here. So that's just a little background on how I got here. I ended up at the assessor's office, which I'll be the first one to admit. I can honestly say I never grew up wanting to be the assessor. I can elaborate on that and say, to be honest with you, I didn't know what the assessor did. I didn't know what the roles and responsibilities of the assessor and or his office was responsible for until I started working there. So in this campaign, it's been important for me to express to everyone what the roles and responsibilities of the assessor is and how it affects everyone's life. If you live and or operate within Pima County as a property owner or someone that doesn't own property, the actions that take place within your assessor's office still affect you, and I'll explain that going forward. So the first key point for the agenda is the roles and responsibility of the assessor. The second point is me explaining more about myself and my three focus priorities, which are people, service, and innovation. People, service, and innovation to me are vital in this community, and I'll explain that a little more going forward. And then also the third point speaks to the times that we're in right now, and that's valuing property and leading the assessor's office during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. If you were around or a property owner anywhere in the entire world for that matter, around 2008, property values obviously took a hit, tax dollars went up, so on and so forth. So if this pandemic pans out the way that it's going, there could be some major lasting implications for our community as well as the country, which at this point, it's pretty safe to predict that those are coming in the future. So that would be the agenda for today. So understanding the role of the assessor and how it affects you, like I was just mentioning. So essentially, the primary responsibility of the Pima County Assessor is to determine the value of all real and personal property within the county. And all this is done with the idea of the taxable purposes. Ad valorem is the term we use in-house. So for everything that is real property is anything that is connected to the earth for the most part. Real property is your home. Real property is businesses, so on and so forth. And then personal property would be assets that are located within those entities. A good way to think about it is if you were to take your property and turn it upside down, whatever could fall could be considered real personal property, and whatever sticks to your hand for the most part is real property. So for examples throughout this presentation, let's just consider your home or an SFR, single family residence, for the examples going forward. Let's consider that real property, which it is. And since most of us are more familiar with a residential entity, that's what we'll use. So as you can see on the slide, it's important to know what the assessor is responsible for and what they're not responsible for. This gets blurred very, very often with the public, and it's not the public's fault. To me, it's all summed up in a lack of education from my office to the public. So again, first and foremost, the assessor is responsible for locating, listing, and identifying all property. And then the very next step after that is to put a value on it. That value then and all the information associated with that property gets sent to the tax roll, thus tax bills are generated. What the assessor is not responsible for and does not do. The assessor does absolutely nothing with your tax bill. All right. There's two things to think about in regards to taxes and property taxes. To understand it in the most clear manner, there's valuation and there's taxation. The assessor is responsible for all aspects associated with the valuation. The taxation involves the treasurer's office and other taxing jurisdictions within the county. So the assessor does not calculate tax bills. We do not collect the taxes. We don't establish tax law. We don't set rules associated with the property appraisal in regards to tax, and we don't set tax rates. All right. So again, we locate, we list, we identify what the structure is, we identify the ownerships of it, and we put a value on it. That being said, there's a couple administrative roles in addition to those listing characteristics that the assessor is responsible for, and that's the assessor has the ability to apply tax exemptions and or valuation deferrals, valuation relief programs to taxpayers as well. So all that information is held and managed within our office as well. Okay, so just to elaborate more on that, and this is where I really want people to focus, because this to me is the most important part. At the end of the day, your valuation will get assessed a tax rate. Like I just mentioned, that tax rate is established by taxing authority jurisdictions, the treasurer's office, the board of supervisors, and school districts, so on and so forth, not the assessor's office. Where that's vitally important is that still your value is tied to that tax rate that then generates your tax bill. So for the last 4 months, when I've been out campaigning and having other conversations like this with various groups around town, it's vitally important for me to express to them that if anybody has an opinion about our roads, which who doesn't? If anybody has an opinion about our schools, which who doesn't? If anybody has an opinion about our police and fire protection, parks, and any other service functions from not just Pima County, but other taxing jurisdictions, then you should have an opinion about your assessor. Because if the assessor's office is run in a very inefficient manner, if they are not picking up and locating all property, if we are not valuing that property equitably, fair, and accurately, then this county and taxing jurisdictions that we all live in does not generate the revenue that they deserve. If they don't generate the revenue that they deserve, our schools, our roads, our protection, and other servicing functions suffer. So it's vitally important to make that connection, and earlier in the presentation, that's why I said, if you're a property owner, then this directly affects you because you get that tax bill. If you're a renter, or if you're just someone that is traveling into this county to work, you're still affected by what the assessor does and or doesn't do, because you still drive on the roads. You still utilize libraries. You still utilize the infrastructure in which the county has here for us. So again, if the assessor's office does not run efficiently, effectively, with customers in mind, as well as making sure that all valuations are fair and accurate, then our services that we utilize as citizens of Pima County suffer. And not sure what everyone's opinion is about that, but if you Google search Pima County roads, you are inundated with articles. If you Google search Pima County schools, you're inundated with articles. Okay, so it's vitally important, and I want to make that connection that if you have an opinion about that stuff, then you should have an opinion about who the next assessor is. This little blurb, this second paragraph right here is just kind of food for thought, considering that $1.32 billion in property taxes will be levied by Pima County and other taxing jurisdictions here within the county. So per statute, Pima County has to kind of be the big brother and receive and collect all property taxes. That then it distributes out to various cities, towns, and other taxing jurisdictions, fire districts, so on and so forth. So of the $1.32 billion that will come in physically to Pima County, only 842 of that, 1.32 billion comes in, only 482 million of that stays within Pima County, and 842 million of that goes to all the other taxing jurisdictions. So the reason I bring that up is because this position is a county position, obviously Pima County Assessor's Office, but it touches and its duties affect literally all taxing jurisdictions, all towns, all municipalities within the county. So it's extremely important to understand that anything that involves budgetary actions within those municipalities get a lot of their funding from property tax.
All right, we do have a question for you,
okay,
Dustin, and a person asks, when I sell my house, does the sale price affect the value of other homes in my neighborhood?
So that's a yes and no answer, and I'll tell you why. First and foremost, from any appraiser's point of view, one sale should not dictate the market. Okay? Again, if my house sells in a house of 30 other homes and there is not another arm's length transaction within the next 3 years, then the appraiser needs to look outside of that geographical area to find other sales comps, because one sale should not dictate the market. That being said, the home market's been amazing. There are ample sales here in Pima County. So the yes part of that answer is yes, it does, because the sale of your neighbor's house affects market value. The sale of the neighbor across the street affects market value. So ultimately, your home, if it's deemed an arm's length transaction and if it's deemed a marketable sale, then yes, it does affect market. That being said, if it sells for 20% higher than all the other homes that have recently sold in your area, then it will have a positive impact on the other home valuations within your area as well. So the answer is yes, because all sales get thrown into a pot within that area and are all analyzed, and the market, which is the sales transactions, do dictate valuation.
All right, thanks very much.
Yeah, and it's important to know that everything my office does is based off of market. Absolutely everything. There's 3 methodologies that the Arizona Department of Revenue utilizes to find valuations, and as a senior appraiser in our office, all appraisers go through level 1 and level 2 classes that are administered by the Department of Revenue. So before anyone can put a valuation on a property, you have to be certified through the Department of Revenue. Those 3 methods of valuation is market, which is sales, is cost, which is cost of replacement less depreciation, and that's used in very unique situations where the structures are so unique that there's nothing to compare them to, so you can't use a sales analysis. And then the third is income, and income is more along the lines of commercial property. So what you see on your screen now is actually a copy of my personal notice of value. So if we take a couple steps back, I was explaining to you how valuations are established, what the assessor is responsible for, and then I was making the relationship to your tax bill. So again, the assessor's office is not responsible for taxes, but solely responsible for the valuation aspect of property taxes. Here you'll see, which this is mailed out by the first by March of every year. And the first thing you should notice is that it says 2021. Well, clearly we're in year 2020. But the assessor's office works a year in advance, and all this is based off statute. There's 2 sides of thought to it. That being said, there's been legislation almost every year that has tried to make this a 12-month calendar process. There's pros and cons to that, but at the end of the day, it gets denied, and so we work a year in advance. So what this letter right here tells you as a homeowner if you notice, it's got the previous year, which is 2020, and the current year from the assessor standpoint, evaluation 2021. So with this note, we're telling you that, hey, based off of January 1st, 2020, your valuation for your home for tax year 2021 is going to be those numbers. And in this illustration, I've got them circled. Your assessor's office is responsible for generating the full cash value. Full cash value is synonymous with market value, okay? That being said, we do not try to dictate the market. We're not the real estate industry. We're not any of the industries that are pushing out the trends or anything. Our job is to analyze the data. Take all the various organizations within the industry, look at what's happening, take their data, and then extrapolate that our valuations. So again, all that data comes from market, which is arm's length transactions. The goal of the assessor's office is not to dictate the market. When I say that, I mean we do not want to provide you a value. And as your next assessor, I will never, ever provide you purposely a value that is exactly what your home is worth. Because, again, we're dictating the market. You as the taxpayer, me as the taxpayer, all of us as a taxpayer deserves the benefit of the doubt. It's my goal to always be a percentage of market. All right? So if we run numbers and we deem that all the homes in your area are selling for $300,000, we as Dustin Walters and my staff of the assessor's office, when I become your next assessor, if I send you a notice of value of that $300,000 that is exactly market, I want you to call me up and I want you to say, well, with the market, with the ebbs and flows of the market, how can it be exactly 300? And I'm going to reply to you and I'm going to say, you know what, you're exactly right. Your value needs to be about anywhere from 85 to 95% of it. All right. And it can't be an exact number because properties fluctuate. So again, the assessor's office doesn't try to dictate market. Don't ever get that confused. And as your next assessor, it will be my goal that all properties are under market, just a percentage, because again, we're not doing this from a appraisal standpoint for buying and selling. We're doing this for tax purposes, and all taxpayers deserve the benefit of the doubt. So this is
quick
always
question, Dustin, if I could just jump in. I've got a question here. For residential appraisals, is it the intent that the full cash value would be as close to the price as possible?
Yes. So ultimately, the full cash value in our world, like I just said, is synonymous with market. So our goal is to get it as close to possible without exceeding it, obviously. But as your next assessor, it's also important to not hit that number exact, because again, we're dealing with the market here. There's ebbs and flows. There's uniqueness to every property. So my goal, and even as your appraiser right now, if I appraise your property and I do all my research and all my analysis, and I come up with number XYZ for your value, then I'm not sending that exact number out. I'm sending a percentage of that number out that allows to get all other properties that are similar in characteristics equitable. And that's where, in our world, equitable property valuation is vitally important. This property tax system was never created for one person to pay an outlandish amount of taxes over someone else when they have similar properties. So again, when you're extrapolating the data and you're analyzing it, there's clearly going to be outliers. But our goal is to get that data as tight as possible, get a percentage of that, and then that in there is your full cash value that comes out on your notice of value. So now let's make the transition from the notice of value that comes from the assessor's office to this form right here. That is your property tax statement that comes from the treasurer's office, okay? Here's where one prong of the property tax system, it connects with the other prong. One valuation and one taxation. If you look here, you'll see in the illustration that's closest is 2019 tax statement, Pima County, and then you'll see the state code, and then you'll see assessment, and right to the right of that, I've got it highlighted. It's 67,000 and some change. And again, this came right off the Pima County website. Okay, so that 60,000 right there is in the column of real property, and above it, it says taxable net assessed value. Okay, that is on one side of the tax bill. You flip the tax bill over, and that is the illustration behind it that has those numbers highlighted as well. And if you see assessment, under assessment, you see limited, and then you see full cash. And if you carry those numbers over, in this particular case, the limited is equal to the full cash, and I'll explain that here a little later. But again, your assessor's office is responsible solely for the full cash value. The limited value is a mathematical equation of other properties of similar characteristics. Per statute, the limited property value will never, ever exceed the full cash value. And you pay your taxes off of the limited, okay? That's something that later during this campaign, I'll have a class on and help better explain that. So in this scenario, you'll see that the valuation of the property from my office, full cash value is 670,000 something. Can't necessarily. That right there is then multiplied by an assessment ratio that is statutorily set. All your primary residence and or rental units are all assessed at 10%. So you take that 10% and you times it by the valuation that my office is responsible for, and you get your assessed value, which in this case is the 67,000 and some change. That 67,000 and some change, again, on this forefront illustration, is written as your real property. So that there is your assessed value. Your assessed value is then multiplied by our primary tax rate and our secondary tax rate, which I have highlighted there. So 67,000 times that 11.92, convert that to a percentage, and you'll get your primary tax burden. You take that 67,000, again, you multiply it by the 2.29, turn that into a percentage, and you'll get your secondary tax burden, which is summarized here on this first illustration, 2019 tax summary. You add those two up, and then that is your tax bill, okay? So the reason for this illustration is to draw the relationship between the valuations that your assessor's office develops and your tax bill, okay? But also, it's vitally important to understand that the assessor has no authority in establishing those tax rates, the taxing jurisdictions, budgets, the collection of taxes, or anything like that. So there's a lot of confusion, and for the past 7-8 years I've been in the office, there's most of my phone calls come to me with that kind of question, and so it's important to notice that from a valuation standpoint, your assessor is responsible, taxes, the treasurer, and or other taxing jurisdictions.
All right. While we're doing that, I've got a question from several people who want to know, in the assessor's race, there are at least 3 Democrats running. And how do you distinguish yourself? What makes you a better person than the other candidates?
What a great question. First of all, I am not a career politician by any means. I currently work in the office, so I literally have firsthand experience on how my office works for you right now and how it doesn't really work for you. All right. I am tied into all my coworkers. I have such an amazing relationship with all of them, which, by the way, leads to kind of my next point that if your assessor's office wasn't already staffed with extremely competent and dedicated people, then I would not be putting my name out here whatsoever. At the end of the day, this position is only as good as the office is, and the people that currently work in that office are extremely dedicated, extremely resilient, and will do anything and everything in their power to make sure that they do their job to the best of their abilities. I have such an amazing relationship with every single one of my coworkers. I've already got a a collaborative spirit of leadership with my coworkers. So literally on day one, policies and procedures will change to benefit the taxpayers of Pima County. I've got coworkers that get frustrated because they have to do things a certain way, and there's not a point to do them that way. We've already found more efficiencies in cutting waste and or from other continuous improvement projects that I've been a part of that allow us to do our job easier, that allow us to produce a better product. And in your assessor's case, the product we produce is fair, equitable, and accurate valuations. And so again, based off of the collaborative spirit of leadership that I naturally carry myself with and work with, my coworkers have come to me. That being said, this office is much more important than people realize, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. And so it's important for me to make sure that we continue to build on the successes that the office is experiencing right now. There's obviously things that can be worked on, which are part of my three focus priorities. But at the end of the day, I look at this as a customer service job. My career successes have all been around customers, the success of other employees through education and training that I've provided, ultimately producing a better product. And nothing excites me more than going to work every day to help my neighbors, to help my neighbors' neighbors, to help my neighbors' family and friends, to help the citizens of Pima County. I'm not doing it to get rich. Obviously, this is a county job. I'm not doing it because it's a carefree job. There's a lot of headaches and challenges that come along with it. But I'm doing it because at the end of the day, my dedication to you all comes from my courage, my conviction, my character, my connections, and my credibility. And I will do everything in my power to make sure everyone in this county is treated fairly. And when I say treated fairly, they're treated with the utmost respect every single day. They're treated with the best service that anybody can possibly give them. And they're treated with the most fair and equitable valuations that come through innovation. So that, at the end of the day, is why I'm the best candidate. What will allow the office under my leadership to produce better values, more fair, more equitable, more consistent, more accurate values is wrapped up in my three focus priorities, again, of people, service, and innovation. And if you see that paragraph right there, that paragraph means a lot to me because I firmly believe this. I firmly believe that this community, and when I say this community, I mean Southern Arizona, firmly believe that it's built around the respect for all people, the importance of accommodating services, and the pursuit of innovation. Understand that this office under my leadership will be focused on those same three priorities because I really believe that with focus on those three priorities, a better product will exist. Not only a better product, a healthier work environment, a more motivated work environment, and more satisfied citizens from a valuation standpoint in Pima County. Over to the left side of your screen, you'll see where I elaborate on exactly those three priorities. People, at the end of the day, people create the solutions, all right? And so when I say a focus priority of people, I mean internal staff and I mean external people. External people in the sense of establishing relationships and positive dialogue with community leaders, state officials, and other county departments that play a role in the valuation and taxation processes here in Pima County. More external collaboration in the idea of creating an advisory committee with developers, tax agents, title examiners, property owners, HOA associations, and other folks involved with the real estate community that has questions for us. The real estate industry and community utilizes our information for a lot of their practices. I've gotten feedback that our external website is not user-friendly. They can't get the data they need from that. At the end of the day, if my office has the data, if it's from a recorded document, then it's public knowledge. As a service to this community, we need to make sure that information is expressed in a very tangible, very easy, very concise method that doesn't provide headache for somebody that's trying to get it. So focus priority people. That was my external relationships in development of people to produce a better product. And then obviously my internal staff, which is very important, because if the folks inside the office haven't bought in, aren't dedicated, aren't educated, then at the end of the day, as in Pima County citizens, our evaluations and our service with this office will be affected. So that's where I have the advantage over the other two candidates. I'm in the office. I eat lunch with these folks every day. I'm doing it because they're behind me. If I had to persuade them, like I had to persuade my family or friends, then I wouldn't be doing it. Because at the end of the day, it's extremely important. But without their pushing me and their motivation, it's one less major headache that I have to deal with after I become elected. They already know me ins and outs. They already know my personality. They already know my leadership style. And they already know that I'm going to expect a lot more than what is expected out of them now. And with that comes a lot more motivation, a lot more education, a lot more of the tangible things that we don't necessarily have now that are easily budgeted and easily obtainable. So people are very important in my first priority. Second priority is service. Service from a proactive assessor's office. This comes from one of my most recent phone calls that I had, and I was talking with the person, and I'll try to summarize the conversation. But the person called me on the phone, and they actually called me from another Pima County department. They were over in Pima County wastewater, and without getting into details, this person had a plot of land that was going through the split process. The split process is initiated in our office, where again you have one big parcel that then gets divided up. Per statute regulations, we have a certain time frame in which our office has to produce that. Well, that's an extended amount of time. In my eyes, that needs to be reduced. The reason it's not reduced now is because of a personnel issue and/or policies and procedures that inhibit employees from working more efficiently. I am very dedicated to improving that department. Some of my closest coworkers, from a friendship standpoint, work in that department, and they get frustrated because their hands get tied at times. And from a very objective analyzation of it, there's no reason why that should be. So, long story short, the fellow's on the phone, and he cannot get a water meter to his new parcels until we produce the final outcome of the split, and we give them a parcel ID number that then goes to the planning development services and gets an address. Well, the Tucson Water will not give him a water meter without an address. So here we are. I look at my coworker and I said, so this particular citizen has all this money wrapped up in this very small development that he's just doing for his family, and we're looking at almost a year out before he can get a water meter that then can start the construction process and the whole permit process. And I said, you know what? That's just not acceptable. It's not acceptable at all. We have the packet of information on our desk. Unfortunately, it was in a stack of other stuff. So the reality is that it wasn't fair to all the other split combo requests that we had. Just, skip that one, so on and so forth. But what was fair is to do whatever we needed to do through communications with that other Pima County department to let them know that, hey, what this guy is doing is legit, but you shouldn't hold up anything on your end. So long story short, we placed some phone calls right then and there. I asked him, I said, do you mind walking over to our building? He said, no, I would love to. So the fellow walked over to our building. He was still downtown. A coworker and myself met him downstairs at the front counter. He had all the documents he needed. We explained to him the situation. We can't process it right this minute because it's just not possible. That being said, if they're looking at us as the authoritative figure in the sense that they can't issue a water meter until XYZ is done, then I'm going to write a note. And my coworker and I typed up a note on our letterhead right then and there, I placed a phone call to that particular agency, and the agency said, yes, I think that will suffice. Long story short, again, we printed the letter. That particular customer, which again is also a neighbor, is also a family friend, is also a taxpayer within Pima County, looked at my coworker and I with tears in his eyes and said, you don't know how long this has taken me to do this. And they appreciated, he and his wife appreciated what my coworker and I did within that hour to help him get this project off the ground, thus allow money to start coming in. This project was draining it. That's the reason why I'm running for this. When I have the ability to help my community, nothing satisfies me more. And as somebody who has all successful business experience in the private sector, I know how the private world works. The private world doesn't settle for, we'll do it tomorrow. Doesn't settle for, well, since so-and-so is involved, we'll let them handle it. The private sector gets it done and gets it done in the most efficient, effective manner. That's what I bring to this office as your next assessor. Because at the end of the day, the customers, which are my neighbors, my friends, my family, other citizens of Pima County, deserve it to be done immediately. All the bureaucratic red tape that exists doesn't have to be there. And it's my mission to get rid of as much as possible. And the stuff that I can't get rid of, the citizens of Pima County will be the first ones to know, because I do believe, and I believe this in my whole heart, that when we put a voice to something, when we shine a light on an issue, things change. Okay? So I have no problem standing up day in and day out for the people of Pima County. And so from a service standpoint, nobody will provide better service for this office than I will as your next assessor. And I've got a whole protocol of opportunities within the service. One being very important. At the end of the day, this office is of service to the citizens of Pima. There's a lot of discriminatory factors that prevent people from getting to our office. If it's because they're elderly, if it's because they don't have transportation to get there and can't utilize public transportation. That being said, it's important for my office to get out into the community. Okay, just how we started this presentation and explaining where valuations come from. If the education from our office is proactive and is out in the community, then everybody has a better understanding. And there's nothing more powerful than people being educated on what government activities are taking place. As your next assessor, you will know everything that takes place in this office. We will come out to your community. You will be notified. We'll have town halls to where you don't have to come downtown to our office. It's a pain in the butt to drive down there and park, so on and so forth. So there's no reason why we can't take the service to you. Innovation, and I'll kind of breeze through this one. Innovation, this town is built on innovation. We've got Raytheon, we've got U of A. There all the technological advances that come out of U of A. The aeronautical industry, the mining industry, on and on and on. This town is based off innovation. We call it the old Pueblo, and to me it is and will always be the old Pueblo. But it's far from the old Pueblo of the past. And so continuously pursuing innovation in the most cost-effective manner is what the office will do under my leadership. Our external website needs to be edited. Our databases that we work on internally are ancient. And the reality is that if those crash, they hold a lot of data. And I don't want to be involved with an organization that has software and internal systems that could ever be liable for a major disruption in county government. So making sure that the necessary budgetary obligations are handled to increase our technological aspect is important. That comes not only in tangible technology, social media. We have no social media presence right now. Social media is free. Not everybody utilizes social media, but some people do. And again, it's free to process. So establishing a communications director within our office that is a one-touch, one-resource person that handles all the incoming questions that everybody should understand, and also sends outside communications via our webpage, via social media aspects, so on and so forth. And then also making sure that our staff is continuously educated. I'm putting that under innovation because it's important to innovate the mind as well as to innovate the tools in which the staff of the assessor's office is told to utilize. Like I've already told my coworkers that, hey, listen, standing behind me, motivating me to become your next assessor, I'll be the first one to tell you, it's going to come with higher expectations, 100%. And at the same time, it's going to come with probably more responsibilities, and it's going to come with more expectations. And my guarantee to them is that I will give you the tools that you need to produce a better product. And I will also hold you accountable. And that being said, I expect them to hold me accountable as well. Because at the end of the day, the staff of this office is a customer as well. We're all tax-paying property owners here in Pima County. And everyone deserves to be treated fair and equitable. And that's why, at the end of the day, my slogan is, it's you I value. Because you, as in the people of Pima, are the most important aspect of this position, are the most important aspect of where my responsibility lies. My responsibility lies to you. And nothing will excite me more than going to work every day, making sure that my staff and myself do everything in our power to provide you the best service, the most fair, the most accurate, and the most equitable valuation ever. And if anybody has any issues with that, then our office is wide open, and we will give you all the time that you need to make sure we handle that. And the reason it's easy for me to say that, Mr. Bernard, is because that's how I work now. I'm not going out on a limb here saying that I'm going to do anything differently. There's customers that I value their, a particular property class. And here shortly, now that I'm forced to be out of the office, I will promote those names on my webpage, because to me, it's important to hear a couple testimonials about the service that I provided to them, about the fair and equitable practices that I provide, because at the end of the day, if it's not right, it's not going to be done. And we will do whatever we got to do and utilize as much time and resources as possible to make sure what we do is right.
Dustin, if I could jump in, we've got a couple of questions from the audience, and we have about 10 minutes left. So
Okay.
one question that's come up is, do you feel that the assessor's office is fully staffed and that the staff gets adequate training?
Currently, no, I do not. So from the way I understand it, and I've done my research on this, we're allotted around 133 full-time employment. If you were to pull the numbers, which obviously are all public knowledge, the numbers are a little deceiving, and that's because of a hiring practice that's become common, and that is using a detailed position to advance employees. And a lot of times that's necessary when you've had advancements, or when you've had retirements, which we recently have had a lot of, and the staff that is currently there, again, to the questionnaires point, is not fully educated on the task of the next position, then you put them in a detailed position. That detailed position allows them to work day in and day out in the roles and responsibilities of the promotional position, while still holding their other position for them in case they don't succeed at it. So that being said, with this hiring technique and promotional technique, it utilizes two positions. So when I say that from the last research I've done a couple months ago, our office being allotted 133 personnel, and you'll see that obviously we're not there. Right now, before the pandemic, I think we were running at about 112, anywhere from 90 to 112. That being said, I do not believe it takes 133 people to work in our office to provide a better product. I'm extremely confident that around 122 people, 120, 125 people would be far than enough, as long as the policies and procedures are improved upon And as long as there's an educational curriculum, which I plan on implementing, that allows everybody to be educated, so cross-training can take place, and that frustrations don't exist through promotion. And currently, right now, nothing more frustrating than watching a coworker get promoted, and you're excited for them, but they're promoted into a position that they know very little about. Okay, so it's important to me to hit that on the forefront. As people are hired and as they're going throughout their workday, they're required to take a educational curriculum that will be implemented from industry experts that will make sure that people are cross-trained and are more knowledgeable every day than they were the prior day. So when those promotions come, people can take it, and then you don't have to utilize the detailed position, which skews our personnel numbers.
Got another question here for you. People would like to hear, let's see. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. People would like to know a little bit about your experience before you joined the assessor's office. Can you spend a minute and tell us about that?
Sure, yes. So prior to moving out to Tucson, I was in the alcohol sales and operations industry for about 12 years. And I worked for Budweiser, and then towards the end there, I worked for Miller Coors. And if anybody's familiar with that industry, it is extremely cutthroat. It is extremely competitive, and it is extremely stressful in the sense of what should not be uber important to the world. In that industry, everything's are extremely important. And so I learned a lot in those 12 years. And I found myself getting promoted into positions in which I was far younger than those I was managing. And this started out in the operational side of things. And I was asked to take over the delivery department of 33 drivers in this particular distribution. And so the first week I got there, and I was already extremely familiar with it. So first thing I do, and I learned this from a mentor long ago, is the acronym of the stop sign, STOP, S-T-O-P. And S for stop, T for think, O for organize, and P for proceed. And I kind of utilize that in my everyday life, to be able to stop, analyze the situation, analyze where the issues are, analyze the pros, the cons, get feedback from those that are doing it every day, ask them what they need to do it better, ask them how they can be held accountable, and be clear and concise in leadership. And I've managed people for a number of years on those principles, and I've been extremely successful. Not only financially successful, but personally successful in watching people grow and mature, and watching them do things that they never thought they could do because they were never pushed to do it, because they were never asked to do it, because they were never given the tools to do it. So my past sets me up perfect for this position. Management and operations, management and sales. At the end of the day, as a manager, you do not have any success if you cannot get results through others. And getting results through others without being a strong, steadfast leader is virtually impossible. And again, back to the point I was making earlier, my coworkers coming to me and saying, hey, we want you to be the boss. We want you to work for us. We want you to not only lead us, but allow us to be better stewards to this community. We're behind you. Please do this for us. And I said, guys, I don't mind doing it. It's not that I would not enjoy and be honored to lead the organization, but there's a whole campaign. There's a vital sacrifice that I'm currently taking, and that is I am strictly unemployed. I'm the only candidate that's running right now that is not producing an income. New county policy, considering that I am a county employee, as soon as I turned in my signatures, I had to step away. So here, with the world pretty much being furloughed and everybody losing their jobs, it's hard for me to complain because my position is protected, but I'm not generating an income. And so my family has had to take a major sacrifice and plan this accordingly to make sure that, that I could do this. And so at the end of the day, it's extremely important to understand that I'm doing this for the love and consideration of the Pima County employee,
All right.
Pima County citizen.
Let me jump in a sec. We have a couple of people who've been waiting to get their questions answered for some time. Matthew would like to, he asks, the assessor's office has had its share of controversies, including suing 42 taxpayers as well as many nonprofit organizations such as the Primavera Foundation. How is that fair and respectable treatment, and how does that benefit the taxpayers?
Gotcha. So the second aspect of that regarding the nonprofits, what happened with the nonprofits was based on a time frame in which they turned in their required paperwork that allowed them to receive the tax breaks that nonprofits get. And again, speaking with coworkers that are involved with that, because I don't work in that department every day, and so I'm not going to be the candidate that tells you I have all the answers. What this candidate, Dustin Walters, does have is connections and communication line directly to that department. So again, understanding this, that first of all, just from the thought of that, doesn't sound right. And like I said earlier, if it's not right, it will not fly under my administration. So I've chatted with coworkers that work in that department, and it comes down to a deadline in which that nonprofit didn't meet by turning in their paper. My next question to those that were handling it, not those that made the decision came from the top, but those that are handling, I said, so how can this be fixed? It sounds to me, first of all, did we communicate with these entities to let them know that, hey, your forms and your registration is due in X amount of days? And this person said, I don't think we did. So already establishing a better communication with those entities should solve that problem. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't, and they are still late in doing their paperwork, then to me, it's an education process. But no, suing a nonprofit to me gets nowhere. It's not good business. It's not good for our community. It's not good relations whatsoever. So I will always look at another avenue of solutions for nonprofits. Now, the first part of the question, in suing 42 people, whatever that number is, there's pros and cons to that. Okay, the oath of the assessor's office is to stand for all property owners within Pima County. Your mom and pops is what we call them, which would be me, which would be my neighbor. Those that just own a house and just living their life here in Pima County. We'll refer to them as mom and pop. Then you have your business owners, and you've got mom and pop business owners that just own the dry cleaner down the street, that just own a fast food restaurant, that just own an air conditioning business. And then you've got big commercial entities that own vast developments and their home offices are out of state. It's important to understand that when you hear these headlines of the 42 being sued and so on and so forth, a vast majority of that is our office being in a lawsuit involved with developers or entities outside of Pima County. Okay, I'm not saying that makes it right or wrong, but it's not your mom and pop. And as your next assessor, my number one obligation is to the people of Pima County. And if people are using the petition and appeals process to unjustly lower their valuations, then I have to have a voice for those that are not doing it. Because here's the scenario. You ready? If you're in a taxing jurisdiction and big restaurant owner or big retail owner hires a tax agent to artificially lower the value because they don't like the tax bill, since we all love our tax bills, then guess what? That valuation gets lowered. They pay a reduction in taxes. We all have to pick up the slack. And then we all are forced with a more higher tax burden than we deserve. So as your assessor, I have to have a voice, 100%. Does that mean suing everybody that artificially lowers their values? No, it doesn't. Does that mean, back to what I said earlier, shining a light on the problem? Yes. And that's my number one approach to doing that, because there's been a bunch of hearsay about it. And if you were to look at those 42 lawsuits, which by the way, were all ruled in the favor of the assessor, then you would see that, hey, the tax agents and the State Board of Equalization wrongfully lowered values that then forced the citizens of Pima County to pay more of a tax burden. And that's not fair. And again, if it's not fair, it's not going to fly.
All right, Dustin, we've got one last question, and we're running out of time.
Okay.
I know we could go on and on. Have you received any endorsements from fellow Democrats, and describe the support that your campaign is getting?
Yeah. So again, I was persuaded to do this through coworkers. I spent a lot of time thinking about it, about a year or so, but didn't put my name out there until middle of January, and that's after I confided in other community leaders here in town that have participated in the political relations here in Pima County, understanding that I'm not from Pima County, could be a hindrance, and understanding that I don't have family and friends here to push me forward. Those are all things I had to think about, because again, I didn't want to make these sacrifices and put my family in jeopardy if it wasn't worth it. And the final thought in my mind was, listen, if you're educated, if you're intelligent enough, if you have a passion for it, then you need to do it, Dustin. And that's exactly what I thought. And again, back to what I said, my courage, my conviction, my character, my connections, and my credibility is what I'm promoting myself on, because all that will produce a better product for the taxpayers of Pima County when I'm elected as your assessor. So from the endorsement standpoint, the retiring Bill Staples has not endorsed anyone, because there was another coworker running, and him being a class act, he said, you know what, I'm not going to cross that bridge, so on and so forth. I've made the circuits with a whole lot of Democrat hopefuls that have turned in their petitions, and so on and so forth, and have phenomenal relationships with a bunch of those. Right as the conversations were about to take place in regards to to those folks standing behind, or however you would like to describe it, is when the COVID-19 outbreak really hit hard and everybody was forced to quarantine. Ironically, and sad to state, is I was in communication with Mr. Ellis prior to his passing, and unfortunately still on my calendar, have a meeting set up with him next week. So yeah, that aspect of campaigning is important, and I understand it. But what's more important is that I establish relationships with those folks. If they're a community leader, if they're on the board of supervisors, they're going to know about me, because I'm going to put myself out there, and I'm going to let them know that, hey, when the citizens elect me as the next assessor, I'm going to do what's right. I'm not going to do what any other political pundit wants me to do or say. I'm going to do what's right for the citizens of Pima, because that's the only reason I'm doing this. I'm not doing it because I have connections in the political world. I'm doing it because I represent everybody that is a taxpayer here. And that being said, I want to utilize the resources of other candidates and other elected officials that are there. So I will always.
Well, Dustin, let me jump in. We've run out of time. There's just so much going on, and I know some people are upset that I didn't get to their question. So could you just tell us real quickly, how can people get a hold of you if they do have a question they'd like to ask you?
Perfect. And please, these slides will be made available. But my website is Dustin, DUSTIN, 4FOR, assessor, ASSESSOR.com. There you'll see my phone number, you'll see my email address, and so on and so forth. I also have a Facebook page, which facebook.com/Dustin4Assessor. Please reach out to me, because again, the improvements that I want to make are only improvements if they benefit the people of Pima. I'm not doing it for any other reason. So if people have issues with what our office is currently doing, I want to hear about those, because I want you to be part of the process in making those better. And again, that's part of the outreach. Every decision that I make will be centered around making things better for the taxpayer of Pima County.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Dustin. This was a really good presentation. You gave us a chance to learn a lot about you, and I want to wish you good luck in the campaign. And with that, I'm going to invite everybody to come to our next program, which will be at noon on Monday, as everyone knows. And with that, I'm going to end the program and wish you well, Dustin.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your time, and please reach out if you have any questions.
All right.
It's
Bye-bye.
you that I value. Bye-bye.